WNS playoff football coming to Baltimore this week. 1 o'clock kickoff. Luke Jones, this is, I don't know, Harbaugh could have drawn it up and it wouldn't have been any better than this, right? I mean, team having to come play at 10 o'clock in the morning, fly across the country, lose a day. You get a West Coast team instead of an East Coast team. You get to play at 1 o'clock. It's right on schedule. I think even the fans dig it. This is a wonderful little way to start a 2019 as I wear my Free the Birds hat after 115 losses that you suffered through this summer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this through most angles, and you have to be happy with it. I mean, we've talked about it, and we'll continue to talk about it over the course of the week. The fact that they're playing a team that they played a little over 2 weeks ago, and how that might impact this formula that we've talked about where they play such a different style than everyone else offensively, and how they kind of use that to their advantage. Well, the Chargers have seen it, so will it be more like what we saw in the first half of the Chargers game where they moved the ball up and down the field, even though they certainly struggled inside the red zone? Or will it be like the second half where the Chargers really bottled up the Ravens' running game and it was really all the defense?
You feel like if there was a third half, maybe the Chargers would have figured it out, right?
Yeah, and that's not to say that the Ravens aren't going to win on Sunday, and they're a slight favorite, as you would expect a home team to be in a playoff game typically. But it's a tall order to ask your defense to hold Phillip Rivers and the Chargers to 10 points. And remember, that one touchdown was that came off of a fumble that gave them a short field. So certainly they're going to have to be better, and certainly that's one angle of this matchup that you could kind of question. At the same time, the Chargers have to figure out how to solve the Ravens' defense because they didn't come close to doing it in the first matchup. So you can kind of look at it either way, but you're right. Sunday, 1 o'clock start. You can stay on a normal schedule. It's not bumped up a week. You know, we'll talk about what happens the following week, whether they have to go to Kansas City on Saturday if they win, or go into Foxborough to take on the Patriots. But I think,
by the way, we'll have a bus. I just want to put that in there. If there's we're not going to have a bus to Kansas City.
We've made that trip to Foxborough quite a few times.
We know our way through Providence, Rhode Island. Yes, yeah. So I'm already looking for a nice little Italian restaurant on a Saturday. I wouldn't put it past the Colts. I'm just saying, like, these things never go to chalk, and all of these games are interesting. And what's really interesting is Joe Flacco was always so good at winning these games, right? So I still don't think he won't be called upon. So here we go, right? This is fun.
We'll see. I mean, I feel less confident in that kind of a scenario than I would have said 2-3 weeks ago, but you never know. You really never know. I'll always go back to kind of the ultimate example of that I can remember. I mean, prior to Nick Foles last year, I always think back to Drew Bledsoe in the AFC Championship in 2001. After Brady had become the toast of New England and came out of nowhere and did such great things for the Patriots in his first 4 years as a starter. But Bledsoe won them that game. Brady went out pretty early in that game, if I recall. So you never quite know, but it's definitely going to be fun, and it's really a case where I look at the Ravens. Are they the favorite to go to the Super Bowl? No, and they shouldn't be with a rookie quarterback, but I'm not going to sit here and say that can't happen. I think they're fully capable of going on that kind of a run, if for no other reason that they do have this novelty offense that's incredibly difficult to prepare for, and they have a defense that, although it was leaky and probably put together its worst performance in, I don't know, I mean, was that their worst defensive performance since the bye week?
Well, the ball went, I mean, Baker Mayfield had his way. I mean, just to a large degree, it was scary. We thought we were going to lose the game, right? I mean, like, I knew that all week. I talked about it all week, and we talked about Baker Mayfield and his improvement, and I watched Hard Knocks like you watched Hard Knocks 5 months ago. We watched him in Oklahoma as we watched Oklahoma struggle yet again. I said they could have used him and Andrews and Zeus and anybody else. Bring back anybody from the 80s they could have used the other night. But Baker Mayfield, for a rookie quarterback in this offense, and Jarvis Landry, who had a ball go off his face mask. Otherwise, we might be watching the Steelers at 1 o'clock on Sunday if that happened, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that. I mean, you look at what they were able to do, And I said this in our previous conversation, and I'll keep coming back to it. I mean, the Ravens were an inch away from going up 27-7, and then to see how that game just flipped because Lamar Jackson didn't stick the ball out another 2 inches to break the plane of the goal line. But you look at what Cleveland was able to do against this defense that has been so tough, number one throughout the season, just about every week in points allowed and total yards. A couple weeks they fell down to second or third, but they never really fell out of that territory. But Cleveland, they picked up 7.6 yards per play. And this is one reason we'll kind of go back to this formula. And, I haven't been as gaga just about the idea of, time of possession. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's important. But I've said several times that it's not the only reason they're winning games. And a lot of it really just comes down to the defense is best playing really, really well. But this was an example of the time of possession probably saving them, because if Cleveland had been on the field another 7 or 8 minutes, if you give them another drive, maybe 2 drives, if it's that much, because it was a 38-30 to 21-30 time of possession advantage for the Ravens, that might have been the difference right there. That could have been the difference, even if everything else plays out exactly the same, but the Ravens don't sustain they sustain one less drive, then that could be the game right there.
Well, I mean, you talk about the Chargers, and the real gift in beating them last week was you give Rivers 2 or 3 more possessions, which is almost inevitable this week, right? Like, I don't know that he could have less possessions or that they could be any more effective than they were, especially early in the game out there. I look at what they did defensively out in Carson and wonder how that's going to work this week, because the game's going to play out differently this week, and I think it might play out a little bit more like what we saw on Sunday than what we saw out in Carson, California, from a possession, from a completion, from looking to go deep and picking on Marlon Humphrey and trying to throw the ball over Jimmy Smith's head. I think that's the only way the Chargers can win, because certainly what they did 2 weeks ago didn't win.
Yeah, but keep in mind, I mean, 2 weeks ago, it was about time of possession in the first half, but the second half, they had 7 possession. They
just didn't last long.
Yeah, well, but if you recall, though, I mean, the Ravens did not have a time of possession advantage in the second half against the Chargers because they didn't run the football. They had 10 carries for, I think, 21 yards before Humphrey's interception, and then Gus Edwards broke off, the 19-yard run, 20-yard run, 21-yard run, whatever it was. But to your point, I think you have to be realistic about the fact that they're probably not going to hold the Chargers to 10 points again. And on the flip side, you're really hoping that your offense, which moved the ball at will in the first half of that game before they kind of bogged down, but they were 0 for 3 inside the red zone. And that's one thing, Nestor, that through the shine of winning and clinching the division and going back to the playoffs, and everyone's happy about that, as they should be. This is something to be really happy about. However, you look at how this game played out, and once again, issues inside the red zone, and I still go back to the fourth quarter when this team, with its run-heavy offense, they had a chance to salt the game away. They had a chance to run out the clock. They had their chance to go into Dean Smith's 4 corners, right? I mean, that's what the Ravens have been able to do, so to speak, against so many teams since the bye week. And we've seen it time and time again in the fourth quarter. They have a 1-score lead, and they grind out a 6, 7, 8-minute drive to get a field goal or a touchdown to kind of put it out of reach, or just play keep away. But they weren't able to do that. And that's what was concerning about Sunday's game, I guess, from the standpoint of they had a chance with not much time to go, 3:24 to go.
10 yards feels like it's easier to get in the first quarter than it is in the fourth.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is interesting. I think we're seeing with this formula, especially the last few weeks. I go back to the Kansas City game. Remember, the Chiefs actually contained their run game pretty well after the first quarter when they were just totally gashed. And it was really Lamar Jackson making some plays with his arm in that game. And they got the punt return, of course, from Cyrus Jones. But you saw what happened there. You saw what happened against the Chargers. And even though the Browns never truly stopped the running game, because, I mean, my goodness, the Ravens rushed for almost 300 yards against them. But when it came down to 3:24 to go, and you're just saying, hey, pick up a couple first downs and this game's over. They couldn't do it. So that's something that you need to see cleaned up and improved upon if they're going to have visions of winning 4 straight games here, which is the idea, right? The idea is
I mean, now you break it down, I really hadn't thought about it like that. They got to go 4 for 4 now, right? Like whatever they've done the last 7 weeks is all nice, but whoever goes 4 for 4 here, or 3 for 3, as Bill Belichick said in the post game, basically when you get a bye, it means you get the win this week, which is nice.
Right, and you get healthy and you rest and you prepare for everyone else and you sit back.
Bye week, I remember that one.
Yeah, it hasn't been too often. I mean,
that one time,
a couple times.
That didn't go so well, did it?
2006 and 2011, right? So I mean, it's definitely been rare for the Ravens, but those are the things that I kind of point to. I mean, we've talked about the red zone all along. They have to get better in that area because, as we saw on Sunday, you can't expect your defense to just hold the opposition to 10 points like they did against the Chargers. I mean, it's going to be more along the lines of maybe not what we saw against Cleveland, because Cleveland put up a heck of a lot of yardage against them, and they haven't given up much yardage this year. All you have to do is look at the numbers, but what we saw Kansas City do, what we saw the Browns do in terms of points, you're playing good teams from this point on. I mean, there are no flukes left. There isn't a Buffalo Bills who's just happy to be in the postseason like it was last year. So it's going to be challenging, and they have to play a more complete 60 minutes on the offensive side if they're going to give themselves the best chance. And that's not to say they can't win another game or two playing like this, because they haven't been perfect in these performances. But just seeing them bogged down a little bit more in the second half the last couple weeks than what we've been seeing, that's a little bit of a concern for me. I mean, they still moved the ball, but they scored 6 points after halftime. And when you look at how close they were to being in a blowout situation, if Lamar Jackson puts the ball over the goal line, from that point on, the Ravens did a lot of things to let the Browns in it. And let's face it, the Browns rejected some of those gifts that the Ravens gave them even. So they need to be better, but it was good enough on Sunday, and now they'll prepare for an opponent they should be really familiar with, but that's the same on the opposite side. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this thing plays out with Ravens-Chargers Part 2 in a little over a 2-week period.
Well, I hope it's not the same old Lang Syne, to quote Dan Fogelberg. Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore Luke, and Luke at WNST. We're going to play a 1 o'clock game here this week. All of our WNST coverage. I have cups all over the studio here, so I'm just going to go like Vanna White and talk about Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast, the tasty coffee. It says right here on the cup, always brewed fresh, and that's a fact, because you got all sorts of flavors there. I prefer the Kona, but you can go after anyone that you like. The fried chicken, the tasty Western fries, and of course, if you're using the ROFO app or the rewards card, when you pump your gas, you're going to wind up getting coffee for free. You're going to wind up getting chicken for free, French fries for free. It's a wonderful rewards program. Take advantage of it in 2019 with our friends at Royal Farms. Also, Strategic Factory, they create your masterpiece. I got to be careful. This one actually has a liquid in it that lets me wet my sick whistle here as I've been a little under the weather during the holidays. Strategic Factory. These folks are up in Owings Mills. They make hats like my Free the Birds hat. They make cups like this Strategic Factory cup that I'm holding on our Facebook Live and our YouTube WNS-TV channel. 2019, if you need promotional goods of any kind, if you have a business, you have a little league team, whatever you have, if you're printing stuff, if you're promoting stuff, if you're marketing stuff, you need Strategic Factory. Find them on the web at Strategic Factory. Give them a call, 443-738-9830. Also, last but never least, Pizza John's. I know they're closed 1 day a week. I know every time I talk about it and I run the ads on the day they're closed, I take heat on social media because I get people like Luke Jones hungry for that meat sauce on the pizza and the Supreme and the ravioli and a cheesesteak sub that I haven't had in 6 weeks that I got to go get this week. You know, I closed my 2018 without going to Pizza John's in Essex in December. That was a mistake. I am growing a playoff beard, Luke. I want you to know that. So if your mom or your sister or somebody important to you is tuning in out on Facebook or out on Twitter or out on our YouTube channel, I'm going to get ugly this week for the cause. It's been so long that I'm a little weirded out by all this, right? Like planning bus trips in January, planning flights to Kansas City, Are we going to play at 1 o'clock or on Sunday? Are we going to play Saturday at 4:30? Getting the weekends together. This is a nice little feeling, right? And I feel like it's going to be a little while before the baseball team allows us any opportunity to do things in October, to make October plans. I don't want to say this came from out of the blue, but I really do appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate what this represents in a way that, let's say, the Patriot fans aren't appreciating their bye this week, right?
Yeah, I think, and you have to feel that way. I mean, my goodness, if you can't be happy about winning the division and having a home playoff game, I mean, what's the point of all this, man? I mean, are we truly only going to validate anything that happens as a sports fan if you're going to judge it solely on championships? Well, that's kind of a miserable endeavor then. I mean, that's something that I've gained more perspective on as I've gotten older. I mean, 18-year-old version of Luke said Super Bowl or the season's a failure, and look, you want to win championships, and this team has won 2 championships in the last 2 decades.
2 more than they have in Washington, 2 more than they have in Cleveland, 2 more than they have in Cincinnati. Right, yeah, I go through all that all the time.
Now, that said, what's happened over the last 6 years, where now you talk about 2 playoff appearances since Super Bowl 47. Yeah, it's been a little lacking. I mean, you want to get into the dance, and that's the standard that's been created around here, and that's a standard that they've fallen short of.
Well, and I think the hardest part with that, with Flacco and having it cost him his job here, is that it was the prime of his career.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, his years from 28 to 33, that's when you looked at him after the Super Bowl and said, you know, maybe we could win another 1 or 2. Maybe we could, you know, go on a run. I mean, but once you make the playoffs 6 years in a row, and then you stop making the playoffs, I mean, I think Joe Flacco will be playing in the playoffs next year if he plays football. I don't know. It feels to me like he's going to go to Miami or Jacksonville or something and be the guy. But this is the part that's been missing for Steve Bisciotti, for John Harbaugh, for the fan base, for my PSLs, that... To your point, and it ends quickly when it ends, right? We've only seen it work twice. We've lost a lot of these games. There have been some lonely drives back from New England and Pittsburgh and Indianapolis and other places, but I don't feel like they're loaded. I don't feel like they're the best team in the tournament, but I feel like they could be the best team in the tournament in January, or they could be done at 3:30 on. So I don't know. I mean, Phillip Rivers could throw the ball over their head and get them down, and then they would have a hard time coming back, I think.
Well, I mean, they're facing a team that finished 2 games better than them in a 16-game schedule.
And was a far more impressive team throughout the season.
And I'll also say this, the Chargers were really good on the road this year. In fact,
well, they played 16 games on the road.
Yeah, there's something to be... Right. Well, I just mean they're true road games where they're getting on a plane and going somewhere. They were really good on the road this year. And you can almost argue because of such a weird environment and playing in a soccer stadium and so many of the games where there were more opposing fans than there are, quote, home fans, you almost wonder if the Chargers are better in that environment. But to go back to my original point, I mean, enjoy this. And we've spent so much time debating the sustainability of this offense and Lamar Jackson versus Joe Flacco, and then it got to a point where, okay, everyone realizes Joe Flacco's not getting his starting job back, but when is Lamar Jackson going to improve as a passer? He needs to get better throwing outside the numbers, needs to be more consistent with his accuracy. And look, all of those things are true. However, don't dwell so much on those things that you're not appreciating what we're watching right now. And, you know, to go to what you just said, I don't think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC, but I'll say this, they're the most compelling team in the AFC. And as much as I've rolled my eyes at this sentiment I'm about to utter, because people have said it late in 2017 and late in 2016 when the Ravens were at a point where they weren't getting in the playoffs anymore, and it's kind of silly to say this when you're not playing in January, but I absolutely believe they're the team that no one wants to play, not because they're the best, but because they're so different and they are such a headache to prepare for. And how long can they ride that wave? Can they ride that wave all the way to Atlanta? Maybe. I'll say this. I wasn't predicting the Ravens to make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl in 2012. I didn't expect them to go to the AFC Championship with a rookie quarterback in 2008. So what makes this different? They have a really good defense that has played at an exceptionally high level. Even on Sunday when they gave up a bunch of yards and they gave up a bunch of plays through the air, they came up big on the final 4 plays to close the deal.
And you know what? Harbaugh's a little pandering in these post-game press conferences because he really thinks his players listen to him, which I think is, 12 years into this, I think it's kind of an absurd notion. But he talked about how many different players have gotten involved, and it really, like C.J. Mosley, nobody would say it's been his best year, right? Like, nobody would look at that.
It hasn't been.
And he has been maligned from Pro Football Focus to wherever it is. And I know you and I, on a personal level, there's no better dude than C.J. Mosley, right? Like, I mean, just on a personal level as to keeping him around or not. And he's a quiet guy, and he's not Ray Lewis and all that. For him to make sort of the ultimate play in that game to sort of seal the deal, to make a statement play, to make a play to say, hey, remember that time Mosley picked the ball on 4th down and, got us into the playoffs and whatever is going to happen. I don't know. I haven't written the rest of Purple Rain 3 yet, Luke. But Mosley being involved, last week it's Peanut and it's Judon and it's it's Jimmy Smith or it's Marlon Humphrey or we don't talk about these guys in the same way that maybe 20 years later we'd say Lewis, Woodson, Sharper, Burnett, Goose, Sam Adams, those kind of players, or even a few years ago where you would look and say the Art Jones or the Paul Krugers are the guys that got involved right around now. I mean, remember, Joe Flacco was planking upside down around this time, the year they won the Super Bowl. And remember, Trent Dilfer was the quarterback. So I can't look at Lamar and say, well, he doesn't throw the ball that well. He doesn't throw the ball that accurately. Marty's a little bit of a mess on the play calling. What the hell are they doing? All the plays in their playbook, their number one play is, Lamar, go up over the top with your hands and have them hack at you and hack at the ball. That's your best play? There's still some things that make me say, if they lose, it's going to be because of something foolish, not because necessarily the ball goes over their head.
How about running the option on 3rd down on the penultimate drive? Yeah. I mean,
you're going to pitch the ball out on the turf on 3rd down with the season on the line. Unbelievable.
And that's where I'll continue to express my lack of trust in Marty Morningwig. I'm sorry. I as much as I want to give the whole coaching staff credit, and he gets some of that credit, but I continue to look at the run game aspects that they have really leaned into and embraced, and the way they've evolved as a running game. I still look at Greg Roman, and this is what they did in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick. And I have a hard time trusting Marty Morningwig in crunch time. And that goes back to last year, the year before that. It is what it is. But to your point, there are definitely scary moments. And as much as you look at the Ravens as this team that other teams don't want to have to prepare for, because we've said it. It's like preparing for Navy or Air Force or, at the high school level, certain teams that do really strange things with their running game. Anyone who's played football at even the high school level, you can remember that team, that would run the wing tee or different things. They were a triple option kind of team, or, they just did really strange things that were different than everyone else you faced. And you'd say, oh, man, I don't want to face these guys. And it's not even that they were the best team. It's just they were different. So as much as the Ravens have that going for them, you still look at certain things. Play calling inside the 10-yard line, it's left a lot to be desired, really, the last couple weeks when you look at it. Again, they had a chance to finish that game on Sunday, and they weren't able to do it. So I think that's still a concern. But on the flip side, you've spent some, you mentioned this defense, and I've said all year long this defense, and they went through their struggles in October. The whole football team struggled in October. That's the reason why they were 4-5, and people were talking about Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson even before Flacco's hip injury. But I still say the biggest difference in this team and the biggest strength of this team has been its defense, and it hasn't been a dominant defensive player of the year performance from a Terrell Suggs 7 years ago, or Ed Reed in 2004, or Ray Lewis in 2003 or 2000. Right now, just true talent level, not talking about names and what they've done in the past. Right now, I don't think there's a single elite Hall of Fame type talent that's currently playing for this team. Terrell Suggs will be in the Hall of Fame one day, most likely. And who knows about C.J. Mosley? I still don't know if I'd make him the highest paid inside linebacker in the NFL. And I really like C.J. Mosley, but I'm not sure I'm doing that in this day and age, and understanding roster needs and the need for this team to evolve and put talent around Lamar Jackson over the next couple of years. And maybe Marlon Humphrey does become an All-Pro. Certainly didn't play like an All-Pro on Sunday. He had a pretty poor performance, but they've had guys step up. And to your point, last week it was Owasso. This week it was C.J. Mosley. We've seen Tavon Young come up big, even though he had his struggles on Sunday. I mean, it's really been 2 or 3 different guys seemingly every week that step up and make some big plays for them. And why I've said this defense has been greater than the sum of its parts for most of the season, and I think that still holds true. I don't know if I'm ever going to view this defense in the same light as the 2000 team or 2003, 2006, 2011. They had a great defense, but I mean, they've gotten the job done. And in this day and age where it's offense, they have reminded us a little bit that maybe it remains to be seen that defense can still win championships, but defense can still win you a division and get you in the playoffs. I think they've established that, and it's all 3 phases have complemented each other well, and it's why the Ravens are still standing as we're getting ready to watch football in the first weekend in January.
He is Luke Jones. Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, and Luke at WNST.net. We're going to be out in Owings Mills all week getting you ready for Festivus 2019 with the party hats. Hopefully there's no hangovers around here this week as Lamar Jackson and Phillip Rivers Part 2 happens at 1 o'clock on Sunday. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Costas Inn. Yes, crab cakes, the pit beef, the crabs, the bands, the jazz night on Wednesday, and I even, Pete and I are friends on Facebook, so I got to see him. He had his wife, kids, daughter. Everybody's out at the game. They're holding up their first place AFC North champs banner. Get on over to Costas. Say hello to our friends over there. Kathy Lee still loves him. So does Hoda. I see him all the time. My wife watches that stuff in the morning. They're always eating Costas on there, just like we are at WNST. Get down North Point Road and give them some love at Costas Inn. Also, the Lee Tessier team, they're selling my condo in 2019. I've lived in the same place for almost 2 decades. Time to move on and move out and move up. And if you're moving on and out and up this year, you need a realtor. You need someone you can trust. With over 50 years of experience helping local buyers and sellers, Lee Tessier and his folks do it right. My guy Tim is on the scene for 2019. Learn more about what they do at leetessier.com. Also, Cole Roofing, sponsor of our community and charity series. And Billy always laughs because, I'm always drinking out of the Cole Roofing mug here. And he's like, you got Royal Farms. You do the mug. I said, I like the mug. I can have both mugs. There's no problem with that. But on Thursday, I do my community and charity series here. We talk to folks like you about things that are important to you out in the community. Whether it's a 5K, whether it's a basket brigade, whether it's a fun run you're doing, whether it's anything in the community that's helping move the ball forward. 2019, it's all brought to you by Cole Roofing here at WNST, and I would love to get some emails from folks saying, hey, I'm doing this charity thing in the spring. Will you promote it? Yes, I will. Just email me, nasty@WNST.net. And by the way, if you get a leak on your roof, you have a corporate roof space, Cole Roofing is always there for you. I'm going to hold the mug up one more time for the camera there. Cole Roofing, in 2019, I'm going to hold the mug up because it says it right there. It says 1919. It's 2019. That means it's now been 100 years. I can stop saying 99 years. And the problem for Pizza John's and for me is I have to start saying 51 years instead of 50th year because we were both born in 1968. It's kind of cool, me and Pizza John's. So lots of anniversaries and celebrations. Even Luke's going to have another birthday in 2019. But, dude, you and I are going to be in Atlanta in a couple of weeks, right? And we're going to, put the chin straps on, and we're going to be talking about something. And I don't know if it's going to be Tom Brady. I don't know if it's going to be Deshaun Watson. I don't know if it's going to be this Patrick Mahomes kid that everybody seems to be talking about. But right now, would you say New Orleans, Kansas City, the Rams? I mean, that was a hell of a game a couple of weeks ago. This is a fun little tournament because I don't know, man. If you gave me $1 right now and I had to bet the exact thing, go to Vegas on it, I don't know who I'm going to see in Atlanta later. I'd watch out for the Bears. I'm just that Trubisky kid looks like he's special to me. I would watch out for the Bears.
I'll throw another team out there, and people in Baltimore are going to cringe. I would say don't sleep on Indianapolis because
they're a 6 seed. They can't win.
But I hear you, but I still look at how Andrew Luck is playing, and you have to give him a lot of credit. When a lot of people were ready to write him off and just assume his career was over with that shoulder, but you look at them, how they're playing offensively, and their defense quietly has played really good football from about the midway point of the season. Go look at their statistics going back to about mid-October, and they've been as good as just about anyone in that regard. So I think it's so fascinating because, especially if you look at the AFC bracket, you have the old guard with Brady, with Rivers, and I mean you look at what you have with those guys, and then you have Lamar Jackson, and you have Deshaun Watson, and you have Andrew Luck, who was kind of forgotten about, even though he looked like he was rapidly on his way to becoming kind of the class of the AFC behind Brady.
Well, he was a true 1-1. I mean, there's been a lot of 1-1s that flame out, bust out, Ryan Leaf out, although he wasn't a 1-1, he's a 1-2. But those guys, you sort of feel it early on. I mean, we're going through that right now with Tannehill, right? We're going through that with Blake Bortles. I mean, all of these guys get recycled. Andrew Luck was not that guy, and yet he was forgotten about, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I just think it's fun. I mean, Brady goes without saying. I mean, and I don't blame people for being sick and tired of Tom Brady and the Patriots because I'm tired of it. I appreciate the greatness, but I certainly am looking forward to seeing some other people.
I hope we're not talking about Tom Brady and Nick
agree.
Foles.
Believe
you know what
me,
I mean? I hope it's not that.
I'm not rooting for the Patriots. I think that much is obvious. But I just think it's so interesting. You have him. You have Phillip Rivers, who's been part of the old guard but has never broken through. So I think there's absolutely some appeal to the idea that if it's not the Ravens, that the Chargers make a run. And then you have these young quarterbacks, Luck, who isn't so young anymore, but he was kind of forgotten. So it's almost like you put him back at square one. And then you have Mahomes, who the best quarterback in the NFL this year, and 50 touchdowns.
See, the thing with him is if we go in there and break their hearts 2 weeks, and by the way, I hope we go to New England. I hope we have a bus trip. I mean, I want to avoid Kansas City. I would rather go to New England, honestly, at this point. I
agree.
And that would mean that the Colts would go down and beat Houston on Saturday, which we're going to sit around and watch that, right? But I look at the Mahomes kid and say, I don't know if this is the year, but that is the hope for the league. Him and Goff and all of these young guys, there's almost a hope for the league that it is Breeze and Brady, right? Like, the league would like that because it would say, oh, the rest of these kids are going to get another shot. Let's have a Breeze and Brady. We never had a Breeze and a Brady. Let's have that. So from the league perspective, to see the veterans and to see the Belichicks and the Paytons get together and try to do, that's an interesting storyline. But I don't want to see that. I think America wants to see Goff and Mahomes, right? They want to see Lamar Jackson and Trubisky. They want to see something new and something fresh. But I think this tournament offers a lot of that. And we got a lot of Black Monday to get to. Luke, let me take a break here real quick. I'm going to come back. I want to go through all of the games we got coming up this week. I want to go through the quarterbacks. I want to go through the matchups. And I want to stretch it out and do it. Luke's going to be in Owings Mills all week long. We're going to be around all week long throughout the holiday and getting you ready for Sunday. I'm Nasty at WNST.net. He is Luke at WNST.net. We're very available individuals, even though we're probably not going to talk too much Orioles this week. You can find us out on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram. And, of course, in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Our morning newspaper ships digitally each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's always $10 a month and $5 down. And it's 2019. Get inspired. Get the Planet Fitness and get in the best shape of your life. Also, the Maryland Jockey Club and our friends at Laurel, where they're racing this week, and they got the beautiful sports bar open down there. The entries are always on the front of WNST.net, as well as in our morning newspaper that delivers every morning to your email inbox. Sign up. It's free. It's easy. It's a pretty awesome newspaper. Luke puts it together personally, so you know it's good. Nasty at WNST.net is me. WNST.net also has a text service for breaking news, and that's, of course, brought to you by Coons Ford and Security Boulevard. And Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, starting in 2019 the right way, and get you ready for Chargers and Ravens Part 2. So go see Dennis at Coons Ford. He's got cars for sale. He's got 18s and 19. It's a crazy thing. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Tassel, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.